what's going on. Douglas Macgregor is a retired Army colonel, author of the book Margin of Victory, a frequent guest on the show, and he joins us tonight. Colonel Macgregor, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, Tucker. I appreciate it.
So I can't help, since I've been in Washington for 30 years, notice that the very people who are pushing this new entanglement, this new enterprise, are the Trump administration's gravest enemies on almost every subject. And they are also the same people who predicted outcomes that never came to pass. In other words, they've been wrong again and again and again and again. How do these people still have power?
Well, look, I think President Trump lost control of the whole appointment process and staffing the government shortly after the election. I don't know the details, but he ended up appointing large numbers of people who subsequently brought in their friends, almost all of whom were opposed to Donald Trump and his agenda. But I think it's important to say something about the president's comment, because the president's right. If you look at the Iranian defense establishment, we spend more money on one Ford-class aircraft carrier than Iran spends on its entire military establishment. So if there were a war, it would be a very one-sided affair. But the problem is that wars don't work that way. They tend to move in directions that no one anticipated. Suddenly, people that you would think would otherwise avoid conflict might decide that it's not in their interest to see Iran destroyed. And I'm thinking of Russia, and I'm thinking of China as perfect examples. Why would they stand by and watch us pulverize Iran? It seems very unlikely. So I think President Trump understands that. In fact, this afternoon when he talked to the VFW, he made the comment that he pulled out of the deal with Iran, but he's open to another deal. He's open to talking, to negotiating. He's talked to the Russians, and he's talked to the North Koreans. That seems to have had a positive impact, certainly in Northeast Asia. We don't know what will happen in the future, but I think that's a good sign. So I think dealing with Donald Trump, understand that anyone who threatens the United States with this man in the White House should seek psychiatric care. They're crazy, because Donald Trump means what he says. He will fight to defend the United States. On the other hand, I don't see any evidence that he's interested in precipitating a conflict.
Do you think the advisors around him, whose comments we just played, Nikki Haley, for example, or John Bolton, I mean, they seem to come at this with pre-existing agendas?
Well, of course. But the good news is that President Trump hasn't listened very much to his advisors. If he did, we would never have made any progress on the Korean Peninsula. We would not be working with the Chinese. We would never have met with Vladimir Putin. So God bless the president. He doesn't listen to these people. So I'm not too worried about that. The thing that does worry me, though, given some of the comments that have been made, is this red meat on the table for the war lobby. You and I know that there are a lot of people who would welcome conflict with Iran. That's obvious. I think the president needs to watch carefully for the potential for something like the Gulf of Tonkin incident. Many of your viewers may not remember that. It never happened. And we could very well be treated to something like that in the Gulf. We should watch for that. And this is an example of President Trump's comments on fake news. He should not be sabotaged by fake news.
I agree. We've seen it happen twice in Syria, twice. Colonel, thank you very much. Great to see you.
Thank you, Tucker.